Hello and welcome back. Once again, I am your tutor Ashok Rajguru, and in this presentation, we shall see how we can go about analyzing this case. The objectives of this video are selecting rubrics, in other words, converting the language of the patient into usable data which we can process with our repertories. Then we shall look at various examples of analysis and then do a differential analysis of the remedies that turn up as the most probable ones. There is another video which follows this where I shall be discussing some other remedies which do not show up in the analysis but which have been found to be useful for this particular condition. And lastly, we shall also see how not to do it. What are the common pitfalls when people use the repertory? One of the offshoots or spin-offs of using computerized tools for homeopathic analysis has been that very often they are not used artistically, and that's exactly one of the objects of all the modules which will teach you how to use the repertory effectively so that our results are replicable all the time. Here is the Bonninghausen's X diagram that we talked about in our introductory sessions. So this is a large cross on a sheet of paper with 4 quadrants. One on the left is for noting down the location and a descriptor of the disorder. On the right are the modalities and causations if known. On top we have sensations, and at the bottom we have concomitants, which are symptoms which do not seem to be directly related to the main disorder or the chief complaint. So we have a description of the disorder, tic douloureux. This is the old French name which is found in classical homeopathic literature. Left face, left part of the face, very important. And we have got two modalities here, motion aggravates and touch aggravates. The slightest touch and the slightest motion aggravates. In fact, if there is a blowing wind, the shaking of the mustache also seems to aggravate tremendously. In fact, that becomes a causation. The pain starts whenever any of these two modalities are there. The quality of the pain is described here. It is sudden, it comes in paroxysms, and importantly, the pain is radiating. It starts from his canine tooth and then it moves upwards to the root of the nose and then to the vertex of the head. So there is a radiating quality which has been described. Mind, the person is quite hopeless and in despair. The two new symptoms which have come up are itching just before the pain comes, and it becomes worse after the pain is over. And lastly, he has complained of a nervous kind of a fatigue and prostration. I have put into the concomitant column for the simple reason it could have in fact gone even in sensations. It doesn't really matter. So now we'll see which do we want to keep, because now we have got out here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And as I told you, my teacher, Dr. Will Taylor, had said you should use between 4 to 8, best is 6. So let's try to see what we can do without. We can get rid of the mental symptoms for the simple reason Bonninghausen said that we should take our mental symptoms for analysis after the primary analysis is over, only for a differential analysis. The next one I would like to remove is the descriptor of the named disease. After all, we are not supposed to be working on named disease. We are supposed to be working on the dynamic disturbance symptoms presented by the patient. So we'll now choose the rubrics from the repertory. The chief complaint, face, tic douloureux. As I told you, I'll be putting up another 2 or 3 slides to explain the impact this particular rubric has on the selection of the remedy. Face left, generalities, pain, motion aggravates. Generalities, pain, touch aggravates. Face, pain, sudden, paroxysmal. Weakness, debility, exhaustion, feebleness, and prostration. Skin, Itching after scratching aggravates. Generalities, radiating, spreading complaints. See, this is a very general symptom. I have not tried to use any symptom which is going to be a particular, because as we saw, it helps to use generals before we start using particulars. That's the beauty of the system evolved by Bonninghausen. And the last one, of course, is mind despair, which I told you will be used only later at the confirmatory stage. So the next slide will show you the analysis as it shows up in a computerized repertory. I'm using the complete repertory 2014 edition as made available on HomeoQuest software. So I'll not read them out again. You already have seen them in the previous slide. And the top remedy here, of course, is Meserium. And it is way ahead. There are only 3 remedies which cover all the 6 rubrics: Meserium, Arsenicum, and Cocculus. And Meserium is having a total score of 21. Another point to remember is the arithmetical score is secondary. What is more important is covering all the rubrics. So even if the score was not 21 and it was having a tie with Arsenicum or Cocculus, I would still go with it and do a differential analysis at the materia medica stage. But here it's clearly a winner, if I could use that term. Now we'll use some other symptoms to confirm if Meserium still stays in the race. For instance, we have got mind despair, twitching, painful, tic douloureux. That means I am using the name of the disease now. And pain, biting, scratching after for itching. And once again, Meserium covers all the 3, and it's in fact just following very closely behind Lycopodium. So I have used the name disease, I have used a mind symptom, and I have used the new symptom which had been brought in by the patient in the second consultation. I can also take a combined view of these 2 repertorial analysis. The first one is marked above the line, the second one is below the line, and when I combine the 2 once again, Meserium comes up a clear winner. You will notice that the remedies that follow are large polycrests: sulfur, nux vomica, arsenicum, pulsatilla, sepia. So the following 5 remedies in fact are there just because they happen to cover virtually everything. So don't you find it surprising that Meserium has still turned up just on the basis of generalities without any very sharply focused particulars? That is the beauty of analyzing with the correct approach. Now, Dr. Harvey Farrington prescribed Meserium 30 to be taken every 3 hours, and the patient was asked to continue with it until the pain was relieved, and then have them at longer intervals. And given below is what Dr. Farrington has to tell us. The effect was almost immediate, and he continued to improve until he was able to start for Santa Catalina off the coast of California for a month's needed rest. So it's a very beautifully rounded up case, and it teaches us a lot of things. For instance, how we should go in a very systematic order in order to do the analysis. Let's take a look at why the earlier remedies had failed. The patient had been to another homeopath who had given him a few remedies which are mentioned in the case. Let's look at each one of them one by one. Magphos is indeed well indicated, but it does not show the debility and prostration and does not have the itching that was described later. And also it does not have the marked aggravation from motion. So it fails on at least 3 counts. Sepia does not show the debility and prostration and does not have radiating pains either. So it fails on those 2 counts. Mag-Carb does not show the debility and prostration and does not have radiating pains. And finally, Spigelia, which does come up in our analysis, covers nearly all, but it does not show the debility and the prostration. Also, it does not appear in Borike's list of tic douloureux. So if you were to take the disease name, it does not appear in that. But as I told you, that is secondary. Moving on, let's see how we got there. As I mentioned earlier, the secret to getting the same remedy in a reliable, replicable way as a great homeopath, Dr. Harvey Farrington, had done was to move from generals to particulars. The second thing that we followed was the rule of 6. That means no more than 8 and no less than 4 rubrics. 6 is best. Doubtful rubrics last. That includes the mind symptoms and any rubrics which you cannot find to fit the kind of symptom described by the patient. Mentals were used only for differentiation and confirmation to be done with the help of a materia medica and or a provings book. Let's see how not to do it. That's equally important. Now, if you look at these rubrics, you'll find in the analysis, first of all, Spigedia, Madphos, and of course, Meserium do not figure in the top 15 remedies. And what is the reason for that? Have we taken the wrong rubrics? Just take a look at this. The rubrics taken are only particulars. Teeth, pain, toothache, canines, eye teeth. Perfect. The patient does show those symptoms. But it's a particular. Teeth, pain, toothache, upper left. Once again, it's a particular, very well described. But as we said, it does not follow the rule of moving from generals to particulars. Nose root, pain root. Then eyes, pain left. Face, pain, motion aggravates. Then we have another one here from Knairs' repertory of which is extracted from Herring's guiding symptoms about the weakness and debility. And of course, we have the last one of hopelessness. Mind you, while the rubrics do describe the condition or the ailment, it does not describe the patient. The patient is the person who is best represented by generals. So this was a very beautiful example of how not to do it. And this is a very common mistake. Somebody would turn around and say, I took all the rubrics which happen to describe the symptoms. But as I told you, the beauty of the art lies in moving from generalities first and then on to the particulars. Here is another repertorial analysis which is a repeat of the previous one, but I have just added one additional symptom or rubric, which is the name of the disease from Borike's repertory. It appears right at the bottom here, tic douloureux. And look at that. It does show Meserium, but at number 15 position. So rather than having an analysis which is random or which is not reliable, we found it was possible to replicate the case done by such an illustrious master after so many years. And look at the beauty of the whole case. It's described by Farrington in a very concise way, unlike many modern authors who tend to have sheafs and sheafs of paper describing every single word uttered by the patient, and it leaves a student or an intern or even a seasoned homeopath in a position where he cannot use those symptoms effectively. So now I'll summarize what we have discussed in this presentation. We saw how to prioritize the symptoms. The Bonninghausen's X diagram comes in very handy because we can see those patients distributed in the way we would like to have a picture of a complete symptom or a patient. Secondly, it's very easy to eliminate them and to maintain our count between 4 to 8, best limiting to 6. So we use the X diagram to our advantage. We saw how to choose the rubrics from the language of the patient. Once again, importance being given first to the generals. And then we saw how we can do a confirmation of those symptoms with the help of a second analysis using those symptoms which we want to take with us for the confirmatory analysis. So that rounds up today's presentation of the analysis. In the next video, we shall be looking at what other remedies you could keep in mind since they are based on clinical experience. So till then, thank you very much indeed. And once again, I'll remind you, please participate on the forum with your views and keep the discussion going. Add to the reservoir of knowledge that is slowly building up with the participation of each one of you. So once again, thank you very much and bye-bye.